So okay, now I'm gonna start from Android in actions. So what I'm gonna do is to demonstrate how to make the Android applications with actual the IDE. So you can just have a sense of what the Android development is. Um, so there's actually two tools that you can use. One is Eclipse. The other one is Android Studio. But recently, the Android Studio is officially supported by the Google, the Android team. So I'm gonna using the Android Studio instead of the Eclipse. So once you open it, you're gonna see this initial page. So there's two panels. On the left, you guys see the recent project. If you just newly install and launch it, then you're gonna see nothing there. And then you have one other panel on the right side, so you can choose one of the items depending on what you need to do. So once you create new project, you will see that project on the left panel later. So because we're gonna start from the scratch, let's hit the new project, and you can just give a name of the applications. So say any name you want. So I'm gonna give name Costa. And then you just decide the company's domain, which is usually just web URL if you have any like website. And then you give a package name. One thing you need to know is that this is a unique. It has to be very unique. So this is a key filters that the Google Play Store distinguish your applications. So once you just screw it up with this application, then you're not gonna get the same URL anymore. So be careful when you decide the package name. So in common practice, we usually give the package name as a company domain, but you can have different the package path if you want. And if you hit the next, you see this screens. By default, it is check the phone and tablet application by default, but you can just specify a different type of application if you want to develop the different type of the applications. And then you can specify the minimum target the operating system that application will support. So usually 4.0 is pretty decent. So
what's the current version?
What's the current version? You mean the latest versions? Is a Lollipop, named the Lollipop. API version, I'm not sure. Let's see. It's a 21. Yeah. And interestingly, if you click one of those the captions, you see the distribution of each Android version. So you can see like approximately how many devices you will cover depending on how you decide what's the minimum version of Android. So say in this case, we decide to support 4.0 as a minimum, then you're going to cover 78% of devices, the activated devices. So you basically just ignore these old devices.
So nobody uses the honeycomb now?
Well,
No,
there is some, but it's really, really small. So maybe it's in this line. No, it's very small. So let's hit next. So Android Studio actually provide a like code template depending on what you need. So you can just take a look later. You can just choose one of them. But personally, I prefer starting from the scratch. So yeah, so let's just start it from the blank activity. Next, so you can specify the default file names of the auto-generated files. So let's leave it as a default. You can change it if you want later. So it initialize the project here. It takes for a while. So this is how it look like as a initial the project. So let me go through basic structure of the project. So there is some panels that you just organize your screens. The left panel is just display the structure of the project. But just notice that this structure is not corresponding the physical file structures. It just the Android Studio organize the files in a way that you can just understand better, the manage better. But if you're new to the Android Studio, you might think it's a little bit confusing. But just trust me, if you have like thousands of Java file, like hundreds of the resources file, then this is way more easier to understand what the structures are and easier to maintain, like those like duplicated files. So you have a manifest. If you have a multiple manifest, then the older manifest will display under this blue manifest folder icons, and all the Java files goes under here. So if you create it, by default you have two duplicated class path. One is for the unit testing, the other one is actual the code. And the RIS is an abbreviation of the resources. So all the resources all the resources like animations and layout and drawables and all those like XML based the files will go below these folders. Any question? Okay. So let's start it from the main activity layout. So you already, which you already have one. So if you create the project by following the steps, you already have the main activities layout. So you can see how it look like on a device on the runtime. Like as you edit it, you can just see the how it look like on the device directly. But because we're gonna use a list view, I'm gonna change to the text view to list view, and then I'm gonna give ID. Now you're done. So this is gonna be the layout for the populating list view of the for the main activity. Okay. But have you guys checked the screenshots? Do you guys know what kind of application we're gonna make? No. Okay. Let's check that first.
What does text do?
Ooh. It's not valid on that element, so it's gonna be ignored. So this is the application that I'm going to make. So this application actually two activities. One is the list activity, and the other one is a detail activity. So depending on each orientation, it displays list of items in different way. So if you hold the device as a vertical, then it displays as a list view, like this, which has one single columns and display items vertically. The arrange the items vertically. But once you change the orientation to portrait, it will display icons like this, which called a grid view. So it just goes to the vertically, the horizontally, and then wrap the line, and then just keep moving until as much as you have in your adapter. And then if you click one of the items, either in the horizontal, the vertical, it will take you to these detail pages, and then you can just navigate through, swiping entire screen. So it's just one by one. Okay. Okay. So this is activity. Okay. This is a layout for the vertical mode. So we need to make the horizontal, the layout. So there's actually two ways. Before to make it, I need to explain about the qualifier, resources qualifiers. The resource qualifier is the way you provide a duplicated resources and then let Android choose appropriate resources depending on its configurations. The layout, orientation is one of the configuration, and configure. There's many different configurations. So say you can specify a specific layout depending on country code, either network code, or region, language, layout directions, like left to right, right to left, and the screen width, screen size, and so many things. So you actually specify a specific layout for a specific devices type, and then you don't need to worry about like how to bind a specific layout for specific situations. Android will automatically pick up the right resources depending on its configuration. This is what we configurations. Interesting thing is that you can use multiple qualifier on a single resources. So for example, you can specify the layout landscape with Canada. You can just specify some images with horizontal that is bigger screen, something like that. So you can use combination of this qualifier, so you can make your application more adaptive. So I created here. So there is a shortcut to make the landscape layout. You just click the landscape, the variations. Then what it does is that it just create another the variation, the qualifier for you, and then copy the original files, paste it to the targeted layout. So now you see the land, right? LAND. That means the landscape. So this file, the land/the activity main, this is the layout that is gonna be used when device is landscape mode. Okay. And I'm gonna change to the grid view. Now you're done. So, but one thing that I just want you to know. So this is a vertical mode. This is a horizontal mode. I just changed the container, which is adapter view, right? But just keep in mind that I just gave a same ID value. So no matter what the Android choose, I can always retrieve either this or this with the same ID values later. Then let's look at the main activity Java class. And these are not necessary here. I'm going to just remove it. So this is it. You create the main activity and you populate the layout by passing the layout the ID. So now you want to just start it. So to see how it look like, right? In order to do that, it doesn't visible that much, but there is the green triangle buttons here. If you click on it, you can just run it. You can test it on actual device or the virtual machines. So in this case, I use a virtual machines. This is the application we just made. It has ability to display multiple items that we define here, but because I didn't provide adapter there, so there is no data to display, but it is capable to display something. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make
to change the rotation and the orientation.
yes, but then also there is no adapter, so it doesn't. In visually there's no difference, right? So I'm gonna make adapter. Oops. Okay. So before we just implement the adapter, let's just copy and paste the images, and I already saved it. So we're gonna display the images on the local spaces. So these are all these image files that I already saved in somewhere. So we're gonna display it later. And we have, but because we have although we have images, we need to specify the path, the file path as a string array. And I already defined it in,
I have a question.
yes.
Is there any reason the adapter class has to be static?
I'll explain later. Yeah. Okay. Good question though. Values. And I'm gonna create in a value as a array. So this is kind of syntax that how you define the list of array of a strings. So you just open string arrays and you give a name and you just put the items as much as you want. So in this case, this one of each is corresponding to the file path that we saved in a set folders. Well, in order to make it like simple, the application simple, I just use the hard-coded images and files, but you can always replace it by the dynamic values. You can just retrieve list of the images as a JSON or the XML, and then you just download the file depending on the URL you get before, something like that. And let's define the layout of each item first. So say now we have a list of images. So I'm gonna make the layout for each items in the same way that I define the activity, the layout. So I'm gonna give a duplicated 2 items, one for the landscape, one for portrait. So I already made this layout, so you can just wrap it with a linear layout and just put it in the image view. The very outside the linear layout arrange the items in the horizontal view. So you just everything is arranged by horizontally. So linear the image view is here, and I put another linear layout inside. But this one has the vertical orientation. So the things are arranged by the vertical mode. So you can have this kind of layout. And this is going to be displayed on the vertical mode. And this one is for landscape mode. So it just, this image view is not icon anymore. It just fill up the whole screens, and then it has a linear layout inside like this. So you can define, you can just compare it like side by side. Not this one. Like this. And then we're gonna have an adapter. So like one of you guys asked why I define it as a static class. That's about how the Java works. If it works without these keywords, it looks like exactly the same. But the difference is that because I defined this class inside one other class. So if it is non-static, then when it's compiled the code, Java compiler passing the reference to the outer classes inside of the classes. So then there is some risk of memory leak there. So it's better to specify the static. Whenever you create the inner classes, it's a best practice to make it as a static classes, or you just define it as a separate classes, like totally out of that classes. So, and because this class is only being used in this class, I just define it as private. So it's a private static class adapter. So one thing that you need to know is that I just extend the array adapter in order to make the adapters. Array adapter is it's actually adapters. So I just extend it and just override some of the method to tweak the behaviors as I want. There is another type of adapter you can use, but then the array adapter just take array of the data or collection of data, which is quite good, which is quite corresponding to the data type that I'm gonna use, which is array here. So I just choose it, and in order to make the simple application, I just use the random object for the title and subtitle, but you can actually change that later in order to retrieve the title and subtitle later. Let's make another utility class. You can just use some util method you can use across the applications. So I have two methods here. One is just simply creating the string out of the random strings out of the random object, because the class doesn't provide a random string method. So you just create a random string out of the long the next long the method, and this is get bitmap. So you're just passing the context and the bitmap the file path, and then it will create the bitmap object, which is actual the drawable items on the screens rather than just a file path. Is there any questions? Am I doing too fast?
Can you give me some brief explanation regarding the context?
Context?
Yes.
Okay, context is context is not like specific files. Context is kind of the abstract class. Abstract class. It's kind of controller kind of model. So you can retrieve some services. You can just look up some services on the Android system, or you can get some resources out of there. Activity implement context, and the service object, the service classes implement that context, and application. There's a few classes that have a context features, like extended context. So I'm just passing the context as the parameters in order to get the bitmap in a resource folder. So you can retrieve, get asset. So you have a way to access to the asset folders, and then you can open the file stream, and you read it and create the bitmap with help of the bitmap factory method, which is provided by the Android.
In here, you specify the width and height to 100.
Yes.
In the other screen, it has 75 dp. What are the
Okay. Okay. Actually, the DP is an abbreviation of independent pixel. So it's a very unique the measurement system on the Android, because each device has a different the density, regardless whether it's a physical length. So for example, there's a one device, like there's many devices, many different devices has a 5-inch device, the physical size, but all those devices might have different density, which means a different pixel number within a physical the length, right? The more pixels it has, the clearer the image is displayed. So it's kind of difficult to deal with those differences for the UI layout. So we use a DP measurement. So DP measurement is, you don't need to care about what's the density it is. It just all the devices will display a similar, very, very similar length, like physical length, with the DP measurement.
You're talking about
Okay,
resolution.
it's some kind of size conversion.
Yeah, it's size conversion.
So
It's-
what if you didn't specify the width and height here? Then you automatically, or did it purposely?
If I don't specify it and I didn't pass it, then it's gonna load like a full size. The reason why I passing this value is that I wanna shrink the bitmap, and so I load it as big as need. So say I can display this much big on the screen, but the original image is like this much big. So if I try to set it in this small, the screens, Android will shrink it anyway. So then why would I just allocate memory to load this much big images, right? It's just such a waste of memory. So this is the best practice, that you're just passing what's the targeted size for that images. So Android will fetch or create a bitmap like as much as you want.
Mhm.
So you can just skip those, like shrink the process, and also you can save some memory, CPU powers, and yeah, those things. Okay. And okay, let's just fix it. Let's just put it back. So now, but in order to set the adapter to the one of the elements, the list view in the vertical mode and the grid view in the landscape mode, we need to retrieve it first. But in order to access, whenever we need to access the object in the view hierarchy, we just retrieve that object by passing the ID values that we define in the layout files. So for example, here, list view and you cast it. So now we have a list view, but there's one problem there. But once you change the orientation to the horizontal, it's not gonna be list view anymore. So right. So once the execution point hit this point, you're gonna see the class casting error. So what we can do is that dealing with that object as the parents type, which is adapter view. So it doesn't matter whether it is the grid view or list view, because it's an adapter view anyway. So we're dealing with it as an adapter view. And now view dot set adapter, and we create object of this adapter, and we are passing the context itself, and then we need to pass in the list of items that represent the data in this adapter, which is gonna be the image file path. The way we got the array is get resources, get string array, and passing not an ID, sorry, arrays, images, and then okay, let me explain again. So here we just populated the layout, and we extract the either list view or grid view, and then we just set the adapter there. In the adapter, we pass in the list of items here, and then we create like certain items in the grid view within the get view, the method. If you take a look at this part, because as a life cycle, there might be the recycled view here. So if it is not null, which is already like recycled view, which is already created before, then you don't need to create it. You just just use it as it is a given, and then this is how you create it, and then set the values for the title and subscriptions. And you load images from the method we just created here, and set the bin map to the image view and just let it draw. One other thing that you need to know is that the view holders patterns. So when every time you just fling the screens, it just keeps changing. So views goes out of the screens and another views comes in. If you don't have one of the best practice for it is just you create a static object that has a reference to the elements on certain items, and you attach to each items. It sounds a little bit complicated, but it's actually very simple things. You just passing the view either what you created or what you're given by the life cycles, which name is converted view. You just passing it the view holders and retrieve each items on the view object, and it create the reference to it like this. And if it's already created one, you just retrieve it as a tag and just keep using it. Let's take a look. Let's run and just see how it look like. But it looks fine on the vertical mode, but when you change the horizontal, it doesn't look like the grid view. So there is actually a couple of things that I just didn't specify. So what you need to do here is that Android column width. So what I did here, I specify the width of each column and let Android decide how many columns will need to fit in the screens, like this. So if you change the screen type, screen sizes, the number of columns will be changed depending on the actual the screen sizes. Let's run it again. Now it looks like fine. Okay. But it doesn't look like right. I just want to make it as a square, not those like random sizes, and it doesn't look like organized. So this is not exactly what we want. So what I can do about it is nothing. Actually, the features that Android provide, with the features that Android provide, you can't just make it as a square. So in this case, what you can do is you can make the custom the view components, which is fairly easy, but it's very powerful. So what you need to do is just create it just like a normal Java files. Now let's just copy and paste it. Usually what happens is that every time you have some challenges in terms of the UI, what some of people try to make it with the options that given as an Android platform, but sometimes it's not really efficient in terms of a memory the use. So because you know what exactly your app is supposed to be, so you can just make your own custom classes that exactly what you need to do. So this is actually that case. So what you need to do is that because you just want to use you just want to make the image views, right? So you just start with image view, extended image view, and you override a couple of constructor here, and then key point is here on measure. So this is the method that Android will call when Android need to decide how big each item is. So instead of the passing the original value, you actually passing the width value as a height value. So Android will calculate the height as a width, the same as width. So we can have the effect, the desired effect in this way. Okay, now you have a custom view. But in order to populate it in a layout, you have to use a fully qualified class path and class name. So com.cosca and square image view. Now everything is a square. So like rather than dealing with like multiple wrapped containers and those like hacky way, you just create your own classes that has a behavior that exactly what you want, and you can just take a shortcut of the implementations. So now we finished the list of view items. But I want to make it as a clickable, right? But it's not clickable. So in this case, there is one method you can register on click method. So set on item click listener, and then I'm gonna passing myself and implement it like this. So it implemented that interface, and I'm passing it. So the activity itself will handle the on-click events. To see just how it works, let's make it just toast. So if you click the items here, you will see the toast message. This is what we call the toast message. So it displays a message that I set with positions. So now we can do something with that, the callback method, like this here too. But before we doing something, I just want to make some visual effect for the clicking. And that is actually very easy. Go to layout, and you can set Android draw on top, this guy, and then make it true. So this is there's a concept of selectors on Android. Selector is kind of like set of the drawables. So list view, all those adapter view basically has a default adapter, the selector for each items. But in this case, because we have an image view, it actually covers the background of the selectors. So what the property does is that it just draw the selector on top of any items inside. So let's run it again. So it actually dimmed out a little bit when you click each of items, right? Like this. So list view is done. So let's move on to detail activity.
The select and clicks are different activity.
Yes. So now we have only one activity that displays items, but we're gonna make the one more activity that displays the contents of the items we select. So in order to do that, we need to create another. Let's make it quick. Actually, I think we're kind of running out of time, so I think we need to just leave it as just homework. So I don't think I can finish it within this time we have. So, but because this is very simple, and the old code is already available on the Koska site, so you can download it and just take a look at what's going on.
Where do you download the Android Studio?
Android Studio is the official Android developer site. There is a developer sections. There is a
Java application. Like
the Android Studio is based on the IntelliJ. So they took the source code, the IntelliJ, the environment, and they modify it, they customize it a little bit, and tuned in for Android development environment. So it's basically IntelliJ.
So the majority of developers are using Android Studio.
Some developer still prefer using the Eclipse, but people just start moving into the Android Studio nowadays. Yes. So again, thank you for coming today. And later on, just if you have any questions about Android, just feel free to send me an email or just leave questions on the Coscast, and I will respond as much as I can. Yes.
Great.
Thank you. 네, 네.